Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. So yeah, this is a class on value, and I decided to spend some time and plan this out and really talk about this subject because it's the most important part of painting, and especially in viz dev or whatever you're doing. Like this is just it's so important, and it's something that I wish was taught better to me. This is something that they really didn't teach in college, which for me, which is crazy because it's like the most important thing, and it can be really simple if you break it down in this way. Um, so yeah, I've been wanting to teach this class for a while, and yeah, finally get into it. So I hope you enjoy. Um, and I wanted to start with just like the real basics. Like how do I set up Photoshop? How do I do everything? Um, whether you are brand new to using digital tools or Photoshop, or you've been doing it for a while, and maybe this can help simplify your workflow or something. But yeah, so if you open Photoshop, do File, New. So usually what I do, um, I understand things better in inches, and at least in America, this is how you kind of set things up. So usually I work on like action adventure movies, so where things are a bit more cinematic, and the aspect ratio most of the time is 2:3:9. So 2.39 by 1. Keep it inches, resolution 300 pixels per inch. Keep all this stuff. So I go to create, and it gives you the aspect ratio of like what movies are. Obviously, there's different aspect ratios if you're working on a comedy or something. It may be something different. It may be more square, but just something to keep in mind. So this is a really small file. So you can go to image, image size. So this is only 2 inches wide. So usually I'll take this, and if I'm doing a painting, usually I paint like 20 inches or 30 inches. 30 is pretty big, but yeah, it just depends on what I'm doing. So sometimes it'll be smaller. Sometimes I'll start smaller and then I'll res it up as I go. But hit OK. So now we've got a nice high-res canvas that we can paint on. So that's how I started painting. Don't need to save that. Next is the layout. Let's see if we go. So right here, switch this to painting. Because if you're in one of these other ones, it'll change the interface a bit, and you won't have all the tools that you need for painting. So it's this little down arrow. You just go to painting, and then you can get all this stuff. I keep the navigator open. If you don't know how to get these windows open, you just go to window and you find it in here. But the navigator is great because it gives you a little thumbnail of whatever you're working on. So I'm always looking at this as I'm painting. I keep the color tab open, and I keep it HSB sliders. right here. And I do HSB because this really simplifies choosing color. You've got the hue, and you just slide it. You're like, okay, I've got this color, I want it to be more blue, so then you slide it this way. Or you're like, oh, I want it to be more green, so I slide it this way. You got saturation. You want the color to be more saturated, less saturated. And then you have brightness. So this really helps to simplify picking colors. It makes my thought process on doing this so much easier, because you just have to think about it. You break it down to hue, saturation, and brightness. Let's see. Okay, I keep my layers up. You'll see I'll do some demos. You'll see I don't use a ton of layers when I paint. I like to keep it simple. Yeah, I'm always using layers, making new layers and like painting and then merging them down. It's really helpful. And then I keep my brushes open. It depends on what projects I work on at the time. Sometimes I have like a specific brush set for a project because there's like a stylistic thing that we have to match. So we create brushes for that. Like when I was on Spider-Man, I had like a whole set of brushes that were just for Spider-Man. And then I was on like something that was more painterly, more impressionistic. So I made a bunch of more impressionistic brushes. Generally, I like to keep my brushes to a minimum. I don't like to have like hundreds. I think I've got like 30 or something that I use, and these are kind of a mash of like a few different movies that I've been on. Obviously, I've got like my go-to favorite ones, which is probably just like 2 or 3 of these that I use all the time. You can make folders and stuff for them. These are like the ones that Photoshop comes with. I haven't even really looked at those. But yeah, and we're not going to get caught up in brushes too much in this lesson. So yeah, that's layout. What tools do I use? I'm someone who likes to keep the tools like as simple as possible, because I feel like if you are using like all these different like color like layer adjustments and all these like filters and all this like crazy stuff all the time, it takes you away from what's important, and that's just you're trying to create a painting, and it breaks that hand to eye coordination. It breaks your mind. You're not focused on the painting if you're thinking about like, oh, what tool do I use to get that effect or whatever. So I keep it as simple as possible. And I do that by usually just using a couple different brushes. Sometimes I'll just use one brush for a painting. I use the lasso, which is over here. This is helpful because when I'm painting, I can be like, okay, I've got like some stuff in the background, and then I'm just gonna paint that in quickly. So you can get some nice crisp edges and stuff, so I do that a lot. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it for tools. I'll as I'm painting and I stumble across like new tools that I'm using, I will talk about it. But yeah, my general rule is keep it simple. You'll see me use clipping masks, and a lot of times I'll make a document like this. I will I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do a sketch in here. So I've got this on a layer, I make a new layer, create clipping mask. So I just right clicked or control click to create a clipping mask. So now that you have a clipping mask, that means you can paint in here and it's going to stay in there. So this is helpful. You can do a bunch of these across your canvas, and you can do a bunch of like color thumbnails. You can do a shape like this. You can paint some shape. Right click, create clipping mask. So now you're painting within this shape. So that's helpful. It's kind of similar to doing a lasso. You can do a lot of the same stuff. But I find that some of these things where you can like mask out things or like do lassos or keep these selections, it's helpful to kind of speed up the process. So these are great to use. Let's see. Okay, for this class, we are going to use only the hard round brush. And this is really important. Like when I started painting, I was like, oh, I want to like get all these cool brush effects, and like I would see like a painting that had like beautiful brushwork, and I'd be like, oh, I gotta get those brushes, you know? But what I didn't realize is it's not the brushes that matter. It's really just the it's how you use the brush, and how you see the value, how you simplify the value, and then how you apply the color. So when you're doing this class, please just use the hard round brush. It'll pay off for you. It'll help you to simplify and really think about these shapes and forms that you're making, and making big, bold choices that will ultimately make your paintings like much stronger. And I wanted to go over a couple things. Some things that I've kind of like learned or thought about a lot, like throughout my career, and like things that I kind of wish I knew in the beginning. One being values, but another big one is talent. You know, I would see these incredible like artists when I was in like high school or college, and I'd be like, wow, I could never do that. They're like God level, you know? And I was like, they're just talented. They're born with something or whatever. But that's the wrong way to think about it. I think talent, it comes from your experiences growing up, like how you were raised, your parents, your school, your experiences, all that stuff. Things that teach you to focus. Some people are just become better at focusing. Some people are faster learners and slower learners, and that all happens because of the way you were raised and like your experiences your whole life. But I think the most important thing is it's hard work and dedication and focus, and practicing the correct things, like learning the correct things. I mean, that part is tricky because it's hard to know sometimes, like what's the correct thing. but yeah, you'll figure that out as you go. And I'm assuming you're taking this class because you're a painter, so I think it's important to focus on painting and be like, I'm going to become the best painter I can, and don't let anything stand in your way. Like, take every class you can, um, practice every day, keep the mindset that there's always something new that you can learn. Um, Even if you have your dream job, um, you're like, yes, I finally made it. Don't just settle. Like, if you're a painter, you can learn something new about color every day for the rest of your life, and still have only scratched the surface. Because it's impossible for us to like go and study every single lighting situation, every color that there is in the world, um, every kind of weather, every different location. Yeah, there's just so much that we can pick up on and learn from, and then studying how other artists use color, how other people see color, um, and then letting that build you up as well. So it's endless. Um, so yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, um, forget about like you're born with this talent. Um, you create the talent yourself, through hard work and dedication and sacrifice. Um, I heard this somewhere. It's like you gotta do 1,000 ugly paintings before you do one good one. And when I was in college, all of my assignments were like, oh, spend like 2 weeks doing this like super detailed like colored pencil drawing, or spend like 2 weeks uh, doing like a huge like portrait, self portrait, um, and what I like after I got out of college, I I didn't grow that much because I didn't. If you do a new piece of artwork every 2 weeks, it's like it's gonna take you forever to do 1,000 paintings, right? So it only makes sense to do faster paintings, uh, faster studies, like keep them small and loose, rather than like detailing out like the eye in a portrait, you know? Um, yeah, so in this class, I talk a lot about, um, doing these like quick studies and stuff. Um, so you gotta do that. Don't get into detail yet. That will come later. It's important that you master value, um, first. So smart and hard work. You can't just do hard work. I see so many people, um, online who are doing tons of work like every day. They're posting something new, and it's kind of like the same thing over and over again. Then they haven't progressed in years, um, and maybe they're just content or whatever. That's totally fine. I don't judge that at all. But it's, if you're trying to get better, you're trying to like push yourself. You have to work smart, and you do that by. For me, it's all I'm always taking like some class, trying to like just pick up on something new, um, or I'm reading a book, or I'm listening to a podcast. Um, I'm always learning something new about art and then applying that to my own work. And if I feel like I'm stagnating or something, then, that's when I really try to like push myself out of my comfort zone and I try some new things. Because remember, this is a lifelong thing, that we're chasing. Alright, so now we're getting into the good stuff. Simplification. So this is the same image, A and B. I just adjusted the values a bit in B, and I drew a figure in here. And this is pretty obvious, right? Which one stands out more? Which one are you drawn to more? Definitely B. And that we did this through a simple thing, silhouetting this character, creating dark over light. That right there is so important. If you can tell the story through this silhouette, you can make an image readable just in black and white in silhouette, then you will capture your audience. You won't confuse them, because this one's confusing, right? You don't know what to look at. Everything's it's just kind of like a texture. Where this one, it's got depth. We see a character. Yeah. So let's look at how we can study this. Look at screenshots from movies. Each of these is lit a little bit differently. Here we have a strong silhouette, right? This girl, it's telling the story through just these two values, right? Dark over light, and she's holding a knife. We can tell what's going on. Here we have light over dark, so the light side of their faces stands out against the dark background. And then this one's interesting. We get bright highlights, these rim lights, and that separates them from the background. You get the brightest brights on the figures, the highest contrast, so meaning the brightest bright versus darkest dark, right in the focal point, so you know where to look. Here, highest contrast, again, right here. And this one's interesting because they're using a framing element. If you put like a window, it can be any shape, you know. If you put a window there and then you frame a character within the window, that's going to help direct your eye right there. So I'm going to show some like really simple illustrations just to really drive this point home. So which one are you drawn to more? Which one's easier to read? Obviously A, right? You got high contrast, you have a strong silhouette of a person, you can tell what's going on, right? This is the same image, but I got rid of the white background, and then I added in some other things, some other blobs, the same value as him. So now he blends in with all of this. You don't see him right away. And something I should mention is these aren't rules that you have to stick to all the time. Like maybe you want to create an image and you do want to hide the character. You don't want to see the character. So that in that case you would use B. But most of the time you want to create strong silhouettes, light over dark or dark over light. Like we could inverse this one and it would be the same kind of thing. Here's another example. We've we've got two different images, same character, but we're just moving him. So if we stick him right in the middle, that tells a different story than if we scoot him off towards the side and then he's coming. Like this one, it's like maybe he's going into the light, or maybe he's walking away from the light. That's starting to tell a story, right? It's like, why is he going there? Is there something back here that we don't see? Here, this one's very centered and formal. Maybe it's kind of an establishing shot. Maybe we just want 100% of the attention and just to be on this guy's face. Yeah, so each of these compositions is valid. It's just, what's the purpose of this shot? Another example, got the same girl, but this one, the light is behind her face. Maybe it's a window that has a backdrop. I mean, a window that it's like casting some light into the room. So now we silhouette this girl in front of the light. This one becomes maybe more mysterious because she's walking out of the light or into the light. We don't see her face as much. So you can really use light to help tell your story. So I did some like silly illustrations here, but we want to create strong silhouettes that tell a story. So here it's super simple, just girl reaching for the cat. B, the cat just walks away and she slumps over, so you can tell by her body language. This one, she's excited, like yay, reaching for the cat. Here she's like sad the cat walked away. So you want to create these strong silhouettes in your paintings that read from like across the room, you know? Here's my cat. It's quarantine, so I've just like been in my apartment with Kiki for like almost a year, I feel like. But yeah, there she is. Sometimes I take her outside. So we're gonna stick with the cat theme for a little bit. So in just two values, we're telling the story. Here maybe there's a flashlight, and we see the cat in the distance, and the cat is lit up, and it's light over dark. Super simple, easy to read. Here, maybe the light hasn't quite reached the cat, so maybe we just see two glowing eyes, and then the light's picking up on some of this dust and some of these bugs. So we can, both of these have a different mood, right? This one's more mysterious, this one's giving you more of the information. So you have to think about when would you use one versus the other. And this isn't a place where I want to say exact rules or anything, because I'll give examples, but the rules are always there to be broken. So that brings us to leading the eye, and this is such a great tool to use, using light and dark shapes to lead your eye from foreground to background. See, we start big, and then we get smaller, smaller, smaller. So that reinforces the perspective, and that pulls your eye into this composition. Here, this one, we've got more of a landscape, but we've got these lines that pull us back. In just two values, we get a sense of the space. Leading the eye. got shadow shapes in the ground that pull your eye in and point you to the focal point. So if this is your focal point, you have to reinforce that with the light, the objects, everything that's in your composition. You don't have to be super heavy-handed about it and be too obvious about it. Because like if I just had every branch going like this, it would be too much, right? So I've got like one branch going like this, and then I contrast that with a bigger one going like this. So you've got these branches that pull you in. This next one, we're using the framing element. And then this light shape to pull you in, pull you in, pull you in. So when you start doing these sketches and you're sketching your own stories and whatever, you can think about all these things and it'll help your paintings become so much stronger. So now we're going to start getting into like how to study this. So collect references. I use Pinterest a lot because it's so easy to. I have a tab here with just photos, screenshots from movies, whatever, just anything that kind of like catches my eye. And these I'll look for lighting, colors, value structures, compositions, all that stuff. So I'm just always pinning stuff here, so I've always got it. And this is open, so if you guys look me up on Pinterest, you can find it. So yeah, collect things that interest you. Collect photos, take your own photos. Follow some photographers on social media and like grab their stuff and use that as inspiration. Master paintings is a huge one. And what do I mean by master painting? For me, that means something, usually traditional medium. It's usually someone who's dead. But not always, and it's a painting that feels like it was really observed outside, and something where they really captured like the lighting and the atmosphere, the weather. They really captured that stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff that I consider master paintings and that I want to study, so I get those sensibilities into my own work. So yeah, it's usually a plein air painting. Screenshots from movies, video games, music videos, documentaries. Depending on how much time I have on a project or an assignment, sometimes I'll watch a documentary on the subject and like pull references. Sometimes I'll be watching a music video, and music videos sometimes they like really push the color or something, and I'll be like, oh, that's cool, maybe I can incorporate that. And I list these 3 photos, master paintings, and screenshots on purpose, and we'll go over why. But basically you don't want to only study from photos, because then your paintings are going to look like photos, and that's probably not what you want. You want something, because photos, they crunch the values, they simplify the colors, they blow things out, but sometimes you can learn a lot from photos. Like there'll be like cool like lens effects. There'll be some like interesting shots that you wouldn't be able to get if you go out there like doing like an oil painting on location. Master paintings, This is super important. Look at some of the best artists. I've got a list of them coming up, and you can study. You can get by doing like master studies and stuff. You'll get a little glimpse of how this artist simplifies their values, how they see color. So it's so important. And screenshots from movies and stuff, that is helpful because it gives you something that's been art directed and it's cinematic, and you can really learn a lot from studying that stuff. It'll help you to start thinking more cinematically. So here's a list of some of my favorites. Feel free to screenshot this and look them up. A couple of my all-time favorites: Richard Schmid, obviously. He was a huge inspiration, especially when I started out painting, because I loved his stuff and I loved his brushwork, and I really tried to like replicate that. And he's just so good at like color and yeah, just like capturing the lighting. Tibor Nagy's another one who I study a lot of because his stuff is so loose and he just pulls in the detail right where it's needed. And then Edgar Payne, just beautiful color, epic landscapes, just gorgeous stuff. Cool, so let's look at some paintings. So these are all paintings that from artists from the list I just showed you. So when you look at these, one thing that probably stands out is just the beautiful, rich colors. That's why I'm drawn to them. Just gorgeous. But how do we analyze these? And how would we do something like this? So if you switch it to grayscale and you look at it and you squint your eyes, you can see some of these shapes start to simplify. You've got a big light shape here. Versus a darker shape here. So this complex, epic landscape, we just broke it down into two values. So now it's starting to become more manageable, right? Here, if we squint our eyes, we get this shape. Well, you could break this one down into a few different ways, but yeah, we've got this. Maybe we could do it this way too. Just two values. This one's beautiful, very high key. We got the framing element. We got a couple framing elements. And then we got highest contrast right here. I'm purposely keeping these pretty small on my screen so I don't like zoom in too much and start focusing on detail. So this one, we've got light trees against dark background. Super simple. And then we've got these leading lines that pull you in. There's big dark shape that just pulls you right into the composition. Big light shape, big dark shape. Look at these light values, how they've all grouped together here. If we look at this one in color, there's so much color. It's beautiful color. never be able to capture that color without this value simplification. So now let's look at some photos. So photos are cool because they'll capture like moments, you know, and you can get such a wide variety. These are all like, there's something interesting about all these images to me. And we break them down, like this one, I love how epic it is. It's just so much space. And then, so I'm analyzing this. I'm like, how are they doing that? I'm looking for these dark shapes that go big to small and pull your eye back. This one is cool because you have a light background and then you've got these dark silhouettes in front of it, and they group into kind of this mass of people. It's simple and beautiful. Here we've got interesting rim light that really separate the figures from the background. Here we've got dark over light. Then we have light over dark. This is interesting because you got these lines that pull you around. Strong silhouettes. I like the perspective in this one. You got all these people back here, but you can group these into one value. So now screenshots from movies. You can tell that these are better in some ways. They're more art directed. They've got more lighting sensibilities. You can tell that they're more directed. So let's look at a couple of these. We've got dark over light. We've got light van over dark background. Light car over dark background. This framing element, and then dark over light. Light over dark. Dark over light. Light over dark. Dark over light. We already looked at this one. Cool. So yeah, that's why you should study from master paintings, photos, and screenshots from movies. So next thing I want to talk about is additive and negative painting. So one thing that's important is to think abstractly with your brushwork. Let's see, we got a composition with a tree and a hill. Person and their dog. So this is additive. We're only adding stuff. So what if we do additive and negative? So now I'm painting out. you can tell already these shapes are becoming more interesting because we're painting in and out of them. You cut into the tree and you can really design these shapes a bit better. And this is kind of why we're using the round brush too, because I really want you to focus on designing your shapes, not relying on the brush right now. I don't really know what I'm drawing too much, but you get the idea. Cool. Let's see. Abstraction. This is why it's really important to look at master paintings, because people from that list that I showed you, they have a lot of abstract brushwork, and they do that because they are going out there and they're just capturing the light. They're not trying to render every little leaf or every little rock on the shore. They are trying to just capture the light, and that should be our goal as well. And a way to help you do that is to think abstractly with your brushwork. Keep your brush bigger than you think you need it. Paint in and out, additive and negative, like I just mentioned. And be abstract with it and have fun. Be messy at times, be more refined at other times. So I mentioned Tibor Nagy earlier, and I want to just look at his stuff a bit closer. Because studying Tibor's work has really helped me to become more efficient. These look like pretty detailed paintings from a distance, but when you get close, you're like, oh, it becomes so simple. Like all these houses just simplify into this value. Then you got these people here that are just dark over light. It's so simple. Here we've got all these crazy brush strokes everywhere, but then he just pulls in the detail in some of these trees in the barn. So he just keeps the detail right in the area where it's important. This one's cool because you can tell it's a highway with like cars passing, but he's not rendering every little piece of the car perfectly. He just puts in enough detail in there so you can tell it's a car. You can tell what's going on. There's just a close-up. It's crazy, right? Yeah, I love Tibor's stuff. So yeah, obviously I'm not like collecting homework or anything for this class, but this is what I recommend doing. Just make a big sheet, and then just start pulling images that you like. Photos, films, and then master studies. And then I recommend doing it this way. You put the photo here and then you do the study underneath. Put the photo here, study underneath. Let's see. I'm gonna show some examples, and then I'm gonna do one or two of these. So we kind of looked at these. So the first exercise is two values, and this is a really big challenge because you have to make choices. You can't show everything. You have to pick and choose what you're going to show. What's the important stuff? Where do you want the eye to go? How do you create the depth in your painting? This one's so simple, but how do we get that to, how do we break that down so it works? How do we show the depth in just two values? Just simple and beautiful. Sometimes I throw something in there that's like a really big challenge for me, because here it doesn't have like a very strong value structure. So I was like, I painted this one a few different times. I was like, what's the best way to do this? And I settled on this one, keeping the figures dark over a light background. And you can tell I'm doing these. They're pretty loose. Time yourself for like 5 minutes to do these. You shouldn't spend more than 10 minutes on these. Keep them loose, because after a few minutes you start getting into detail, you start noodling, and that's not what this is about. You can see my brush strokes are very loose. It's just capturing the essence. So let's go to Pinterest. Let's just pull a couple things. I'll pull two drastically different ones. Just grab them, drag them into Photoshop, put them on the same layer. Oh, by the way, good trick, if you've got a couple layers, Command E pulls them together, so merges them, they become one. What I like to do is I'll just duplicate it, and I do that by Option, clicking, and dragging it down. And that'll duplicate it. Alright, I'm going to do a clipping mask. Do this one. Whoops. And then I just cover these with gray. So two values. This is, once again, this is a challenge. And when you're doing these, paint them really small on your canvas, on your computer screen. Like right now, this is much bigger than what I would paint on my own. I would paint them like this to start, but I'm gonna zoom in and do my best to paint it this way, so you guys can see. But my references, I'll change them to black and white for now to keep this simple for myself. Let's see. I think I'm gonna start with a darker value on this one, and window will be white. So I'm looking for those light spots. You can see how fast and messy I am. And what's important in this one is getting this light on the character so the character reads. This one's tricky. But you can see I'm not going in and like drawing his hands or anything. I'm really just trying to capture this lighting. Maybe I'll try it a different way. I'll go back to this value. This will be my light value, and then I'll pick out the darks like this. Might be a little bit better. I wish I had another value so I could like put some lights in, but this is the two values only. I think I'll leave it like that. This one's going to be a little bit simpler because we have this strong silhouette. So grab some white. Painting additively and negatively. I'm carving stuff out. You know, I'm designing, even though we're copying, we're still designing these shapes a bit. We're observing and seeing what happens with these. In. So a lot of times I'm trying things like, do I want this value here? Do I want it there? How can I tweak it so it reads better? I picked a couple hard ones to do, but it's good. Good to have this challenge. So yeah, that's what you should do for homework. Do 50, do 100 of these, and you'll be amazed at how well you get at simplification by doing these. And they're kind of fun. It's like it's kind of like a game, you know. You challenge yourself to be like, how can I take this complex image and really just break it down? So I enjoy doing these. Um, so a couple other ways. That's the main lesson for this one. But I just want to go through a couple other things to show other ways you can practice this. So obviously, you're probably going to be using Photoshop and a computer. So you're going to be doing a lot of these digitally, which is great. But you can also go outside. You can use ink or a Sharpie marker. You can see I do these on like tiny little pieces of watercolor paper with some ink. Sometimes I do a little pen drawing. Go out there, I try to, like, how can I simplify all this stuff, all these people and bushes and stuff back there? How do I simplify it? Let's see. Let's see. Here we go. So this I'm using 3 values, which we'll get into the next lesson, but this is the idea that I wanted to show you. So these are my sketches, and this is how I sketch for a movie a lot of times. I think about the big shapes, value structure. I pick one, I might refine it a little bit, make sure high contrast is the focal point. I'm separating out my values, big shadow shapes. So from there, I can start blocking it in. I start adding in colors, painting the background. Let's bring back that light source in here. So these characters pop out. By the way, if you didn't know, this is a piece I did for Scooby-Doo, the movie that came out this past summer. Adding in some grass, some overgrowth, and then you'll see I have a bunch of layers right now, but I will group those layers and then paint it all together on one layer. Sometimes I do that. I start with a few layers so I can move stuff around, and then I just merge it all and then paint it as one, because I don't want to have too many layers when I'm doing this. So then I paint the whole thing. Here's another one. This one, obviously I didn't simplify the values the same way I did the first one. But the values are still there. It's just rendered a little bit more. So if we do simplify it, you can see how it breaks down. You get these characters are strong silhouettes. You see the light hitting, describing their forms. High contrast. Really simple shadow shapes. And then we paint it. So we maintain the values, but we just pull in some color. So you'll see, you can kind of get the idea of where this is going, right? So this class is just on value, but the next one will be on color, where we take it and go into color. I rarely save my layers, but this one I was given a drawing. Sandro, I forgot his last name, but yeah, he was a great drawer on the movie. So I take that, and then I start painting it. I start designing how I want the values to read. I'm grouping all the dark shapes. I'm not putting like black up here, because now it becomes messy. I am keeping the dark values right in here and here, so they're contained. It keeps the focus in this area. And then we do some painting. You can see I'm keeping these values. Bring the drawing back. Perspective. Oh, I've even got my references here. I think I took a lot of these photos. Yeah, because we actually went to this location in California. And we took a bunch of photos as a research trip. I've got some paintings in here from other people as well that inspired the colors. Let's see, we'll do one more. So, simple silhouettes. I think I did a lot of like silhouettes with like some rim lighting on them. I did a lot of that with this movie, which I think I did way too much of, but it's kind of a good way to simplify. Paint in the background, paint in the foreground, pull in the characters, get some fog in there, foreground characters, foreground elements that are kind of blurred out, so they help us to feel a bit more cinematic. Got some effects, and yeah, that's it. So, okay, hopefully these Scooby-Doo paintings kind of showed you how this is all going to come together. So do make sure you spend the time and you do the value studies, because that's so important. 2 values, keep them quick, 5 minutes or less. Think about all the stuff we went over, abstraction, keeping things simple, and yeah, I recommend just doing as much as you can until you feel like you've really got it. Just have fun with it. It's low stress. It's a fun game to kind of simplify these things. So yeah, fill up a few pages of them. Do like 50 or something, and then the next class we'll take value to the next level, and we'll talk about adding more values to that, and more composition and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks for watching so far, and talk to you in the next one.